This is Bedtime Stories, Grown-Up Edition, Short Stories, Three's a Crowd, Part 2. When we left off, Stephanie found out what Salema was on, and Salema found out what Stephanie was on. When Woody, Tru, and Stephanie arrived in the Dominican Republic, Salema was waiting for them on the tarmac. She had no idea that Stephanie and Tru would be there, but it's a good thing that Stephanie had intentions of her own when she asked Salema to hop on the plane and have a conversation with her. Because had she not, Tru would have been walking into a setup. Salema made it clear that she's willing to take out anybody who stands between her and whatever she sets her sights on. And she has her sights on being the queen pin of the Baptiste family. And she's willing to get married to do it. When she left Stephanie on the plane and got back into the chauffeured car, Woody and Tru was sitting across from one another, waiting for her to return. When she climbed in, she closed the partition and said, "Initially, I planned to have this conversation with you in private, Big Wood. But after the conversation that I had with Stephanie just now, I think it's important that I put all of the cards on the table, right here and right now. I know you and I ended things some years ago. But now I'm in a conundrum. I need a husband, and all the men that I've met, know, or have been pursued by just won't foot the bill. And it's not like I haven't tried. But try as I might, I can't find a man like you anywhere. I figure instead of trying to find one like you, I'll just come to you. Now, I know traditionally a man and a woman date for a while, and the man will propose, and the woman will get all giddy and say yes, and it'll be a huge celebration. And since this ain't that, I'm sure your question would be, what's in it for you? If you're willing to sit down long enough for me to secure my position, you could do whatever you want to do. And when I'm on top, you can get back in the game if you want to." The only reason why Woody sat there and let Salema say all of this is because he was stunned. He couldn't figure out when Audacity got so damn cheap, but clearly they was giving it out for free. Not only did she hit him with this stupid proposal, but she had the nerve to try to negotiate and broker a marriage deal in front of Tru. Wood was tight. When he finally collected himself, he looked at Salema and said, "You serious right now, Slim?" And Salema said, "I can show you better than I can tell you." And before Woody could respond again, Tru said, "I don't know what you and Steph talked about on that plane, but I absolutely do not need to be a part of this conversation." Then she looked at Woody and said, "When we get to wherever it is that we're going, I'm going to need to go check into a hotel. That would probably be the time for y'all to continue this discussion." Woody said, "A hotel for what, Tru? When we do this kind of work out of town, we stay wherever is provided for us by the person cutting the check. It's safer that way. I told you that before." Tru said, "And I told you before that I always have an alternative location. And you know why. If you've been following Bedtime Stories Grown-Up Edition, then you already know that no matter where Tru is staying when she travels, she always books a hotel room, just in case she sees something that she likes and she wants to take them back for a little spin. That way, they don't know where she's laying her head when she disposes of them. If they double back to the hotel or to the hotel room where she entertained them, they won't find her there because she checks out and checks into a new hotel." Hearing that, Woody was pissed. He said, "Yeah, all right." Then he looked at Salema and said, "Can we continue this discussion later? Not that we really need to, because the answer is unequivocally no." Salema asked, "Is the answer no because you have another prospect?" And then she looked at Tru. Baby, Tru said, "Not if you looking over here at me because you think I might be the prospect. He's a free agent. He can do whatever he wants with whomever he wants. Because the only thing he's doing with me is putting in work." Salema said, "I know all about how he puts in work. How about you?" And with a straight face, Tru said, "The only work that I've ever seen him put in is in the gym, on the shooting range, and on the few jobs that I started and he finished." Salema looked at Woody, and Woody was pissed. Woody and Tru had a one-night stand before they knew that they were connected to one another. And Tru did not miss an opportunity to remind him that she didn't recall it. And every time she did, it burnt him up. But he didn't say a word. And Salema knew there had to be more to the story. And she was determined to hear all about it. She wasn't just in the DR to find out if Woody would marry her. She was there on official Baptiste family business. Q's brother Donovan was in the DR making connections, brokering deals, undercutting the Ramirez family, and lining up targets. He'd been there for weeks, since his son and daughter were kidnapped by his daughter's mother and taken there. He'd gone there to rescue them because they were in the crosshairs of the Ramirez family. He put himself directly in the line of fire. He was kidnapped while his brothers Q, LJ, and Woody were rescuing his children. He was devising a plan to free himself. His daughter's mother was killed during the rescue of their children, and after days of failed negotiations with the other four families, J.R., Raul Ramirez Jr., finally agreed to a meetup. And that's when Donovan struck. Instead of heading back home to be with his children, he decided he'd stay in the DR and dismantle the Ramirez organization and put the wheels in motion to ensure that everybody connected to them were taken out of the game permanently. In order to make that easy and to prevent backlash, he had to ensure that the four remaining families were in position to take over the business that the Ramirez family was handling. If there were lucrative criminal activities to participate in, all five of the notorious five families were involved. So completely eliminating the fifth family, despite its weakened state, would disrupt supply chains in multiple criminal industries for multiple other criminal enterprises. Without alternatives, those other criminal enterprises would revolt. They might even be willing to come to the Ramirez family's aid. Now that all of the pieces were in place, it was time for the finishers to come in. Flush out anybody who was in hiding, eliminate any obstacles, and chop down the Ramirez family tree permanently. So this was an all-hands-on-deck mission. That meant that Salema and Tru would need to work together, and both women would be working with Woody. Salema knew all too well the dangers of mixing business with pleasure, because she and Woody had found themselves in a peculiar position in Thailand during the time period that they were dibbling and dabbling with one another. And that near-death experience was the catalyst for their having to end their extracurricular activities. So if her already dangerous job was going to be that much more risky because there were feelings or entanglements between Woody and Tru, she needed to know about it. There were very little words exchanged on the remainder of that ride to the safe house. But once they arrived and they'd been introduced to the finishers for the other families, the heads of the teams that were in place, putting in work before they got there, and reunited with Donovan, Tru got a ride so that she could go book her hotel room. And Woody and Salema went somewhere private so they could continue their conversation. Behind closed doors, Woody said, "Yo, I know you say whatever you want to say whenever you want to say it to whoever you want to say it to, but don't you ever play with me like that again. You want to talk to me about something personal? You talk to me one-on-one. I don't like people in my business, but don't ever try to put me on the spot in front of somebody else again." Salema said, "Let me find out you ain't want Tru to know about me and you." Woody said, "Ain't no me and you. Remember?" Salema said, "You know what I mean. Stephanie told me that there may or may not be something between you and her. And if we gotta put in work together, I figured it should all be on the table." Woody said, "That wasn't Stephanie's business to tell." Salema said, "She was trying to keep her homegirl safe." Woody said, "You sure she wasn't trying to keep you safe? That is your cousin, right?" Salema asked, "How the hell do you know that?" When she didn't even know it until today, when Salema and Stephanie were on the plane. Stephanie's last question to Salema was, "So, if marriage is so important in the families, how is it that your father isn't married? Who is, and what happened to your mother?" Salema said, "My mother was murdered when I was only a few months old in Puerto Rico. She was in line to be the queenpin of the Lopez family." Stephanie almost passed out. She didn't know if it was because she had lost so much blood when she induced her own labor, or if it was because Salema had just told her that she was the daughter of her father and her Uncle Manny's only sister. Salema said, "You good, cousin?" Stephanie said, "How is it that this is the first that I'm hearing?" Salema cut her off and said, "Because everything is need to know. And until right now, you didn't need to know." Stephanie asked, "So you knew that I was your cousin?" Salema said, "No, because I didn't need to know. Stephanie said, yeah, see, I'm too nosy for stuff like this. All these secrets and carrying on ain't gonna work for me. Salema said, they're gonna have to, if you want to avoid what happened to my mother. If I had more time, I'd give you the story. You got options. You heading to Puerto Rico, you can talk to Uncle Manny about it. Or you can give me a call and we can meet and chop it up. The two exchanged numbers, and then Salema headed to the car. Woody said, that's the difference between me and you. I form real relationships with people. And when you have real relationships, people trust you. They share things about their lives, their families, their truth. You want to get married? Learn how to have a real relationship. But you won't learn it with me. I'm not having a fake marriage. I'm not sitting down. And I'm not doing this forever. Now, I know that you're a persistent woman, but we're here to do a job. Focus on the job. Find you another mark, and don't make me your enemy. We ended things on a good note. You made a choice, and I respected it. Now, you got to live with the choice you made, and you got to respect my position. I don't double back. Salema said, so you and Tasha and y'all back and forth, little situation doesn't count as doubling back? Woody said, I learned from my mistakes. Salema said, so when you see me, you see a mistake? Woody said, no. When I see you, I see a child in heaven that never got to live on earth because her mother wanted to bust her gun and would rather relinquish her responsibilities for the life that she created than to forego power and money. That's not attractive to me, Salema. And for the first time, Salema had to choke back tears. She had never had it put that way before, and she had no clue just how strongly Woody felt about the decision that she'd made. If you watch True Joy, then you know that Salema was pregnant with Woody's baby, and she terminated the pregnancy, choosing to continue pursuing being the head of the Baptiste family instead. And Woody told her that if she went through with the termination, she was terminating whatever it was that they had going on. And he meant that. When Salema said nothing else, there was a knock on the door, and in walked her father, Samuel Baptiste. Neither Woody nor Salema knew how much of that conversation he'd overheard. But when he walked in, the look on his face left no doubt. He said, so you lied to me, Salema? Salema couldn't even make eye contact with him. He'd guessed that she was pregnant and she denied it. And when there was no baby, he believed her. He said, look at me. You made a decision. You should be able to stand on it. Salema said, Pops, that wasn't the time, the circumstances. Samuel said, we don't unalive babies. Woody just stood there. Salema said, we didn't unalive any babies. I terminated a pregnancy, and that was my right. Samuel said, and so what are you doing now, Salema? Please tell me that you're not trying to convince this man to enter into a marriage with you solely for position. So you want to be a living representation of the saying that history repeats itself? Your mother's death wasn't a cautionary tale? Salema said, the situation with you and my mother was completely different, Pops. Samuel said, your mother wanted to be in position. She married me. We were in love, yes, but Queen Pen was her ultimate goal. She had you, and she sat down just long enough to bounce back from the pregnancy. No matter how many times I told her that her only job was to be a wife and a mother, she was determined to succeed her mother. And she knew the danger. She knew the risks. The risks already existed because she was married to me, and being a Lopez meant she was always in danger anyway. Putting those two things together increased the risk to her safety exponentially. I was blessed that you weren't with her when the hit was executed on her life. It was God's grace. That's why you're here today. Salema said, I thought you wanted me at the head of this family. Samuel said, I do, but not like this. Marriage can't just be a means to an end. You don't marry a man so you can use him to get in position. Salema said, but when we were involved some years back and you thought we were going to have a baby, you offered him a position. Samuel said, but he wasn't seeking it. That wasn't his goal. And had he taken it, I would have never respected him. What man wants to be promoted in an organization because he impregnated the daughter of the man at the helm? I needed to know that that wasn't the kind of man he was, so that if the day ever came where he did ask for your hand, or if you admitted you were pregnant and he wanted to do the right thing, he'd at least have a starting point to be able to support his growing family. Then Samuel looked at Woody and said, "You were offended, but you didn't let that prevent you from handling your business. You pulled back on work, and I know that it was mostly so that you could support my nephew and the family. I appreciate and respect that, but I also know you were salty that I disrespected you like that." Woody said, "I tried to put myself in your shoes and ask what I would do if it was my daughter. I'd want her to sit down. I'd want her to get married, and I'd want her husband to be as safe as he could. I took a step back, though, because I was getting pressure from every side, and I don't like being pressured into making life decisions to benefit others. And no matter how much you pay me, if I can't walk away from it, it's too expensive for me." The two men shook hands, and then Woody walked out of the room. Samuel looked at Salema and said, "Yes, I want you at the head of this family, but you're not ready yet. In order to run this organization, you have to be strategic. You have to be smart. You can't create a situation where taking you out will cripple the Baptiste and Lopez families. You still have so much to learn and so many skills to demonstrate. I'm not retiring tomorrow, Salema. And even if I were, or God forbid something happened to me, you're not ready. Take your time, Salema. Focus on improving the skills where you are weakest. You're one of the best finishers I've ever trained. The queen pins aren't finishers. They employ them. Try being a friend. Try having relationships with other people. Try giving more than you take. You want a husband? But why would God give a whole man to a half a woman?